What is the dumbest idea you have ever had that actually worked? In college my buddy and I took an investing class, and for one of the projects we had a month to invest fake dollars into the stock market and see which team would have the most money after a month. It was spring semester, so we put all of our fake money into Heinz, thinking there would be a spike in ketchup and mustard sales as the weather got warmer. The next day, Berkshire Hathaway purchased the entire Heinz company and the professor accused us of insider trading. We had no idea what we were doing. Edit, hey you, Mandog Jr. were famous. Edit 2, to clarify. We didn't actually get in trouble for insider trading, but the professor came over to us before the next class and was like, what happened here? We explained it and she thought it was funny but said we would definitely be investigated for insider trading if this was real money. Similar game. 1987. I was absent the day we were supposed to buy stocks. The crash happened later that week. And since I was in cash and everyone else purchased stock and lost a ton of fake dollars, I won. I had a similar project in high school where we invested fake dollars into the real stock market. For some reason, my strategy was to break even. I didn't care about gaining anything. I just didn't want to lose money. So I invested in American Standard, they make toilets, and Waste Management, they collect garbage, because I figured everyone needs those things constantly. Apparently I had no idea how the stock market worked because I still lost a lot of fake money. I had a similar situation in high school. Our team invested in Colco because we thought sales of the new ColecoVision were going to go through the roof. Well, ColecoVision did okay. But that year Colco also started mass-producing a little thing called Cabbage Patch Kids. We kept reinvesting our money over the semester, and our team made more money than the rest of the class combined. Granted, that was also helped by a few teams whose investments drastically lost money. I once faked being sick when I was in middle school and told my mum I had a sore throat and felt a cold coming on. She took me to the doctor and it turned out that I did, in fact, have strep throat lol. A lot of times I've faked sick in my life. I've wound up actually being sick. I've started recognizing the inexplicably strong urge to bail on something as one of my first symptoms when I'm actually getting sick. In college I was taking a class that required me to purchase an online textbook and workbook that was registered under your name, basically ensuring that each student would have to buy a new online copy each semester instead of buying used textbooks. I had a friend who took this class a semester before me, so we came up with the idea to message customer service and explain that I had recently gotten married, so my last name had changed, and I legally changed my first name from my friend's first name to my first name, and I would need them to change it in their system. It totally worked, and the rep even congratulated me on my marriage. Back in high school, I stopped by one of my teacher's rooms after class to ask him some questions about our homework. When I walked in, I noticed he was grading some of our tests. Of note, all of his tests were made up of multiple choice, true, false, or matching, and all of the answers were bubbled in. What I noticed was that instead of using an answer key to grade, he was just placing a stencil over the paper with the correct bubble punched out. The stencil wasn't transparent, so all it showed was whether we bubbled in the right answer or not. Flash forward to our next test, and I'm stuck on a T-F question. Knowing how he graded, I figured I'd bubble in both T and F. And if he caught it, it would be easy enough to claim it was an accident. Well, he didn't catch it, and I used that trick the rest of the year for a little extra boost on all of his tests. I used to know a guy who, every week, would order his Saturday night curry for delivery while sitting in the pub and then walk over the road to the curry house and get it and himself delivered home. This went on for about 10 to 12 weeks. One week, we were sitting having a pint and the owner of the curry house walked in, took his order, and had him picked up from the pub. He said it was easier for everyone concerned. Bobcat tire blew during a job. Had another tire, but no jack. Positioned the Bobcat behind a dump truck. Bobcat then tries to lift the arse end of the dump truck. Dump truck hella heavy. Bobcat lifted itself instead. Tire changed and back to work. Far from the dumbest working idea in the thread. But I once got an extra day to work on a video project in high school by coming to class with a video that was just a quarter-second of blackness, eagerly volunteering to go first, then acting confused and scared when the file didn't work. The teacher took pity on me and told me to just bring it the following day. And I got to finish it that evening and still got full credit as if I did it on time. I once completely blanked on an essay assignment and didn't realize till I was sitting in class. Luckily, the teacher didn't collect the essays till the end of class and I proceeded to write the whole paper in my notebook during lecture. When people were handing in essays, I went up and told the teacher that I forgot to print it. But I had a version in my email, showing him the handwritten one to prove I had completed the assignment. He let me go print it and I typed the whole thing up in like 5 minutes. Ran back, handed it in and got like a C or B. Couldn't argue that since I was about to get a 0. That's the good ol' corrupted doc trick. Take a PNG. Fuck it. Your favorite meme. And rename it to my final essay.doc and it changes it to a doc file but there is no text so it just shows up corrupted. Turn that in as an attachment to your teacher and you're good for a few more hours at least. I once genuinely arrived with no video presentation in high school because the rest of the group refused to work and only told me 2 hours before. This is where I basically have myself a 2-hour course in improvisation and scored 81/100ths in my improvised presentation for actually looking like I knew my stuff. High school kids are stupid, but their teachers are worse. It probably wouldn't work in this day and age, but back when I was young I was tired of retail and wanted an office job. I just lied my ass off and pulled a total George Costanza what with friends coached to answer their phones as a business and such. Got hired as an admin assistant and been steadily moving up since. We had a noisy rotating rooster weathervane, loud enough to keep people awake on windy nights, despite having been lubed. So I filled the hole the rooster rotates in with Crisco, even though people said it was a dumb idea and wouldn't work. Never had to lube it again because the Crisco didn't break down like other lubes. I have a similar story. Kitchen shears rusted at the joint between the two blades to the point where it took significant pressure just to move them at all. Googled solutions that seemed tedious and required buying food-grade cleaners and lubrication which didn't seem worth it for cheap kitchen shears. So I just dropped some olive oil in there and they've been fine since. Back in the flip phone days, I had dropped mine and the screen stopped working. I could make and receive calls, but the screen was just completely blank. I put up with it for a couple of weeks because I couldn't afford a new phone. But one day I had the thought of, well, if dropping the phone made the connection loose, maybe the same thing can fix it, and threw my phone at the ground. I picked it back up and the screen was working. Edit. Thanks for making this my top comment of all time, guys. Now everyone knows how much of an idiot I am. Edit 2. Specifically to piss off you, Throwdowntown 69, thanks for the gold. Kind stranger. I can't believe I got my very first gold. It's such an honor. XD. I never had screen problems, other than grime build-up from the keys. But over the last year or two, my flip phone has started duplicating keypresses. It's fine for dialing since you can delete at that stage, but breaks all those automated menus, such as the credit card entry for buying more minutes. Skeptical smiley face. We were at a friend's house about to cook a roast. It needed to be patted dry with paper towel, but he was all out. I semi-jokingly suggested using a couple slices of bread. We all chuckled at the idea. It worked perfectly. One time I sent a letter to a local address by putting the return address as the address I wanted it to go to, not putting postage, and dropping it off in a public mailbox. Went to them returned to sender due to insufficient postage. A friend of mine in junior high used to do this all the time to send me random letters. Instead of using his own name, he always gave funny names on the return address. To this day I still remember the name Skippy Wanna. Was really desperate to leave past employer after 15 years. Had been applying and interviewing and striking out. Finally got an interview at a place where, at the time, I felt, meh. I am not really sure this is right for me. But anything is better than where I am at. Instead of prepping for the interview, rehearsing answers, etc., I pulled an office space. I was cocky, brash, unconcerned. Made it seem like I was happy where I was at and didn't really care if I got the job or not. They called me back the next week and I waited a week to return their call. Same deal with the second interview. When they offered me the job, I hemmed and hawed. Said I needed to think about it really hard. And that it was a big move for me, etc., etc. I came back and demanded well over $15,000 above what they were offering in salary. They accepted. There's actually quite a bit of research out there suggesting that people who project confidence are the ones most likely to get hired or promoted, no matter how skilled or knowledgeable they actually are. So this doesn't surprise me at all. I just did something very similar. Hated my current employer. Put my resume out everywhere. Whenever a recruiter called and asked me what my rate was, I just lied and said it was $10K more than I was actually making. The fucking kicker is they just assumed that was what I was worth. And suddenly I have a job that is now a $25K raise over the last one. Using a sewing needle to remove a bit of dirt that was making one of my records skip. Bear in mind my hands are shaky as hell, so it was certainly very tense and there was the danger of fucking up the whole thing. Edit. Thanks to everyone who gave advice on how to clean records less dangerously. Sometimes I use a pin to separate my eyelashes after I apply mascara. Supposedly Audrey Hepburn's makeup artist used to do this. I just hope nobody ever sneaks up on me while I'm doing it. I haven't heard of anyone being blinded that way yet. I forgot to bring a resume to a job interview. But I had an index card in my bag. I cut the index card in half and wrote my name, my contact info, and creative problem solver in my best handwriting, and gave a copy of my business card to both the interviewers. I got the job. Greater than I cut the index card in half and wrote my name, my contact info, and creative problem solver in my best handwriting, and gave a copy of my business card to both the interviewers. Did you do this in front of them or before? Asterisk. This idea could have easily gotten me fired if it went wrong. Asterisk. I was working as art director at an animation studio, making videos for clients. One client was especially pesky about the use of yellow in the background. They wanted it to be that of their logo, which was this horrible neon piss yellow. We advised against it. But after numerous calls we had to cave and gave a version with that color. They hated it and asked for a change. What followed were 12 versions with numerous calls in between tweaking the color over and over. Eventually I got tired of it and just sent the original version again. I didn't even bother to rename the file. The client said, asterisk, this looks exactly the way I wanted. Thank you, asterisk. How that ever went right I still have no idea. We sometimes have what we call desk jobs, where a client wants a change that is non-existent, so we agree. Leave it on the desk for a couple of weeks then send it back. About 80% of the time the client is happy. Our power was out due to a storm. I had a camp stove to use for boiling water to make a coffee pour through. But I couldn't use my electric grinder for the coffee beans. I tried fashioning a mortar and pestle but it was taking too long. So I put the coffee beans in a couple of Ziploc bags, placed the bag right behind a car tire, then ran over it back and forth a couple of times to crush the beans. Worked like a charm. Edit to add lol. It took reading through a few comments but now I see I wrote mortal and not mortar. When I was younger I got called into HR because I drew a very detailed picture of a penis. It was really good. The HR meeting happened like a week after I drew it and my only defense was, I don't recall doing that. Do you happen to have the picture? It might jog my memory. They didn't have it of course because I had it. And because I didn't confess they couldn't do shit. Investigation results inconclusive. Have a nice day. I'm stuck on a cliff. But if I jump at a really sharp angle at that gravel field, I could just slide down there and be fine. Just like in TV. Every time I think about this I am amazed I'm not either flattened by a rock or impact against something. Childhood really is just the tutorial level sometimes. I hated my math teacher and she was making us do a project on patterns even though we were in 7th grade. So my pattern was a series of increasingly longer sideways penises. She didn't even notice and I got an A.